What's goody? Hey man, so we are back for the first time in a very, very, very long time, and that is honestly because of y'all, man. My loyal viewer, I think your name is Elu or Ibu. I'm sorry, brother, if I'm mispronouncing that in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure I am. It's just a long YouTube username, so I'm sorry about that. You requested a video, and I was really kind of just thinking like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna get back into this YouTube thing, and then you left that comment, and I was like, all right, boom, I'm gonna do it. Let's wait till LeBron signs, and I was like, you know what? LeBron's holding the entire NBA hostage right now with his situation. Let me get this video out. Most of free agency is over. Most of the big trades have happened that at least that I can predict are going to happen. So I feel pretty good being able to put this video out right now. This 2026 NBA offseason winners and losers, and we have a lot to discuss in this video because a lot has happened since my last video. We've had the finals have happened. We've had the draft happen. Summer league's going on right now. Free agency for the most part is pretty much over. Aside from just a couple big names, and I feel pretty good that like my list isn't going to change much depending on what happens with a LeBron or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like that might catapult someone up into being more of a winner, but it's not really going to change the grand scheme of this list. So I feel pretty good with this list. So let's just start out with the honorable mentions. And this is a team that I hate the direction that things have gone for them because I had so much hope for this core, and I feel like that hope's kind of pretty much gone for me right now. And that's the Cleveland Cavaliers, man. You already went into last season you already had a disappointing last season, at least in my opinion. I know you made it to the conference finals, but I think we can all agree that the Cleveland Cavaliers, after starting the year out with everyone expecting for them and the Knicks to cruise to 60 wins, then they start the year off 15-14, and everyone's worried about Darius Garland. They pick it up a little bit with Darius Garland when he comes back from injury, but then you trade Darius Garland for James Harden, and you put so much hope in the air, so much hope in the city. People are talking about you being favorites to make it out of the East. People like me included, even though I might not have made a video about it because I wasn't really doing consistent uploads at the time, I definitely made comments in the group chat with the homies where I'm like, hey, this trade right here just made them, if not the favorite, a top two favorite out East. And then for you to go into the playoffs and go to two game sevens, and not just two game sevens, but you go to a game seven against a young Detroit Pistons team, and then you go to a game seven against a young and injured Toronto Raptors team. And in that first series, Jalen Duren had just yet another absolutely awful playoff performance, and really the only guy you had to guard was Cade Cunningham, and you had to guard Tobias Harris because he was their second best player. You're not really worried about that, and that shouldn't have taken you to 7 games. And then on the Toronto Raptors, Brandon Ingram gets injured in I think it was game 5 or 6. But before that, he was a non-factor. He was awful. We were worse in the minutes that he was playing. So that's not a team that should have taken you to 7, especially not when you're missing Emmanuel Quickly for the entirety of the series, and you're missing Brandon Ingram for the last 2 to 3 games of the series. That's not a team that should take you to 7. That's such a young team. And not to mention, we didn't even have a real starting center. We were either starting CMB or Mamu or Jakob Poeltl for a couple minutes. Those aren't teams that should take you to game 7. So then you do that, and then in the conference finals, you don't even put up a fight against the New York Knicks. You absolutely get your doors blown off by the New York Knicks, and you get embarrassed in the conference finals to the point where if I went on the street and asked 20 people who claim to be NBA fans to remind me of anything that happened in the Eastern Conference Finals, they probably wouldn't be able to, because that's how unmemorable of a series that was, because that's just how bad it was for the Cleveland Cavaliers. After all that, you go and you lose depth guys, which you already didn't have a ton of. You lose Dean Wade, Keon Ellis, and even Larry Nance Jr., and now the James Harden is an unrestricted free agent, so I mean, we assume you're going to be able to re-sign him, but is that really something that we should be assuming? Really, to me, this kind of feels a lot like mismanagement, and I don't know if it's on the part of the GM for not doing enough. I don't know if it's on the part of coaching for not being able to get a roster this talented on paper over the hump. I don't know if it's just I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I don't, because this is such a talented roster on paper. I honestly feel like unless LeBron James comes, this Donovan Mitchell era in Cleveland has kind of fumbled its championship window. The only good thing they did this offseason was re-sign Donovan Mitchell. That's it. Another team that we just talked about similarly to the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Detroit Pistons, man, an honorable mention, but like I said, these honorable mentions are close to really being in that top 3, top 4 worst losers of the offseason, because Detroit was shockingly inactive at the trade deadline. And some fans were okay with it, some fans weren't. It was very interesting to see at the time. I remember a lot of people being like, hey, don't overreact right now, see what you've got, and then after the playoffs you make some moves. And I saw people saying, I don't know, you have a real chance right now with how open the East is. You should have done something like trade for a Trey Murphy or trade for whoever people wanted to see, even a Zach LaVine, to get something done and get another guy in there with Cade Cunningham. So for you to not do that is something that, okay, it split the NBA world, but whatever. But for you to come out here and you to watch Cade Cunningham struggle in that playoff series against Cleveland because his second best player was Tobias Harris, you saw how obvious that need for a second ball handler and self-creator was. Then you go into the offseason and you completely ignore that need. You add John Collins, but then you lose Tobias Harris, Isaiah Stewart, and Karis LeVert in the process. And I know losing those guys may not sound like a whole lot, but when you already need more help, especially offensively, losing your second best offensive player in the playoffs in Tobias Harris and losing another just offensive creator, a guy that's at least willing to take shots and dribble the ball, and Karis LeVert is not a great thing, especially given how bad Jalen Duren was, the guy who is an All-NBA All-Star guy that should have been your second best player in the playoffs, considering how bad he was on honestly both ends of the floor for the majority of that Cleveland Cavaliers series. And then on top of all of the inactivity, the lack of things that you've done in this offseason, the Jalen Duren thing. Are you going to cave in and give Jalen Duren his max? Are you going to lose him for nothing? Or are you going to do what I think is the least likely option and be able to convince him that he's not a max player and sign him for a reasonable amount of money? Unless you're able to convince him that he's not Victor Wembanyama and that you're not going to give him Victor Wembanyama money and you convince him to be okay with that, I think Detroit's in a lose-lose situation there. Because you either lose your all-star for nothing, your second all-star for nothing, or you overpay a guy who we just watched have multiple, or who we just watched have back-to-back stinkers in the playoffs. I mean, he's young, but I mean, it's not a great situation for the Detroit Pistons to be in. And then lastly, as my honorable mention before we really get into things, the Denver Nuggets. Similarly to these other two teams, Denver just disappointed last playoffs, and I think it's very obvious that they have a need for depth and they have a need for defense. So for you to go out here and in the offseason not do anything other than lose Tim Hardaway Jr. and pick up Marvin Bagley as a depth big is, I mean, I wouldn't say insane because I know you're kind of I know you kind of have like your hands tied with the money, but at the same time, you're very likely about to lose Peyton Watson, who is, if not your best defender, then your second best defender for nothing, who's also a young guy who can play in starting roles when Aaron Gordon is hurt, which is something that Aaron Gordon has been hurt a lot, at least in the last couple seasons, last season especially. I mean, what can you really, you lose one of your better shooters, right? One of your best shooters. Don't know what's going on with Valanciunas. Is he going back overseas? Is he not? I mean, he wasn't great, but I mean, hey, losing another depth big is losing another depth big, and then you're about to lose Peyton Watson for nothing. If I'm a Denver Nuggets fan, man, like I said, a championship cures all, so you already have that one championship, but yeah, the championship window in Denver is open for as long as you have Nikola Jokic, but if I'm Nikola Jokic, man, I'm not loving what the front office is doing for me recently. All right, now we get into my biggest losers for free agency or just for the offseason. And this is a couple of these I think you guys can predict. I'm going to start off with the biggest loser in free agency, the name, or in the offseason. The name you guys were all expecting to hear in this section is the Boston Celtics, man. The Jaylen Brown trade alone was enough to put the Boston Celtics as the biggest loser of the offseason. This trade was so bad that as I was getting my haircut, me and my barber were literally talking about, we were having a debate as to whether this trade was worse than the Luka Doncic trade. And I was sitting here immediately, the first thing I thought of in my mind was absolutely not. It's not worse. It's probably the second worst trade, but it's not worse. And as we're sitting there debating it, he low-key started to convince me. That's how bad this trade is. I'm not about to let Boston fans or Brad Stevens or anybody else try to sit here and convince us that this is a trade. Oh, well, we really believe that Paul George with his just his capabilities, especially defensively, we believe he can fit into our system, if not even more, if not just as seamlessly, then maybe even more seamlessly than Jaylen Brown is. Maybe he's even a better fit for our system than Jaylen Brown is. Cap. This is not 2017. This is not 2019. There is no world, not one world, in which Paul George, given the money that he's making with a player option next year, and 2 first-round picks, is enough for prime Jaylen Brown coming off of literally the best season of his career. There is no world in which that's enough. I don't care what type of spinning Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics organization want to try to do. I'm with y'all most of the time. Y'all have proven to be a phenomenal organization. Brad Stevens has proven to be a phenomenal GM or head of basketball guy, whatever he is. But this is one of the stupidest, most overthought trades in NBA history, and I've seen all the theories about why they could have traded Jaylen Brown, and I kind of buy into some of them because that's how stupid this trade was. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as the Luka trade because, bro, the Luka trade was so crazy that people literally were wondering if Luka had a case against him because that's how unexpected it was. But this is still crazy. Like, absolutely insane. I feel they brought in Mitchell Robinson, who's a clear upgrade from Vucevic. Cool. Don't give a damn. I'm sorry. You literally, even if Tatum takes the Celtics to 50-plus wins this year, the trade was terrible. And I low-key, even as a Toronto Raptors fan, hope that in this next Philadelphia 76ers era that has Jaylen Brown, I hope they win a championship, bro. Even if they don't, I hope they beat the hell out of the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. And I'm saying that as both a Raptors fan and as a Jason Tatum fan. Because, what? Like, I hope Jaylen Brown gives y'all buckets every time he sees you. I hope Jaylen Brown is the best player on the court every single time he sees y'all, bro. Because what are well, him or Tatum. But, like, come on, bro. I hope he puts on a show every single time he sees y'all. Because what... Y'all, I feel like that man was so underappreciated while he was there. I would even argue just unappreciated while he was there. And then he has the best year of his career and takes your franchise to places they would not have been. That franchise would not have even been sniffing the playoffs if it had not been for Jaylen Brown averaging 30, having an MVP level campaign last year. I'm moving on, but my goodness, bro. The LA Clippers are my next one. I'm assuming that the Raptors are going to pay the price to have Kawhi Leonard in spite of whatever issues are going on. So I'm just going to say this section, I'm just going to preface this section with that. I'm just assuming they lost Kawhi Leonard already. I'm just assuming that trade is done. If that trade really is done, the Clippers just got so much worse. I mean, they already got worse, in my opinion, at least with the James Harden trade, but then you just complete another trade with Kawhi and BI, in which you downgraded. You lose guys like John Collins. I mean, it's just not... Yeah, the roster just doesn't look good, and I very much believe... If you told me the LA Clippers after this next season are a bottom 3 team in the Western Conference, I absolutely wouldn't be shocked, because it's just... Yeah, it's not a great team, man. I like bringing in Rui, but... Yeah, the team's just simply not going to be good next year. And I mean, you just got this new stadium. What was last year the first year of this new stadium, or was it 2 years ago? Either way, you get this new stadium and you had this whole era with Kawhi and with Paul George, and now you lose both of them in back-to-back off seasons, and you literally have nothing to show for it. You didn't even get to the finals. Like, you have literally nothing to show for it. So I just feel like the Clippers have just fallen from grace so quickly, and it's, yeah. I think the biggest thing with me and why the Clippers are included here over some of those other teams that I have as honorable mentions is just like the future looks so bleak for them. Like with Cleveland, hey, you're going to have Donovan Mitchell. Detroit, you're going to have Cade Cunningham. Denver, you're going to have Nikola Jokic. I can't say that about the LA Clippers. And I can't say that about this next team either, the New Orleans Pelicans. Dude, other than the Sacramento Kings, you could argue this is the worst run team in basketball right now, probably, other than the Sacramento Kings. And I might even put the Sacramento Kings ahead of them, based off just these last 2 years. The Joe Dumars era is off to such a bad start, and I hate to say that about another brother, man, but I just don't know how much longer this era is even going to last. First, you have the Derek Queen trade, a trade that I admittedly didn't hate at first until I saw what that potential pick was going to be. Until I saw that pick was like unprotected, and I was like, I don't know. But I didn't hate the trade. Like, it wasn't like I didn't think it was a F trade, worst trade of all time type of thing, because I personally never really believed that the Pelicans were going to get the first pick. I didn't ever think there was a world where they were going to be that bad last year, and I even was like, hey, they could very well be a play-in team based on the roster they had going into the year. So I was like, yeah, there's just that's not a terrible trade. I was obviously wrong. But then you follow up a trade that ended up being bad by doing nothing at the deadline, which was insane considering I believe at the deadline you were, if not the worst team in the West, you were the second worst team in the West, having battles on a game-to-game basis with the Sacramento Kings for worst in the West. And now you're following that up by choosing to do literally more nothing in the offseason. I just don't understand the logic behind going 26-56 and seeing this roster with this same group of core guys having never made it past the first round and winning even like one game in the first round of the playoffs since these guys have been here, whether it be the Zion Williamsons, the Trey Murphys, the Herb Jones, whoever you want to say is a part of that core, used to be Brandon Ingram. I just don't get how you are coming off a 26-56 season and you've also seen this roster not do anything in the past and not be able to stay healthy in the past, and you still just continue to say, I like where we are. No moves. Like, I just don't, I don't get the logic behind that, and you'll never be able to convince me that that's something that makes sense. And then lastly, now, we are on to the winners, guys, and I got a couple of them, and one of them you're probably going to say is biased, but whatever. Let's just go ahead and start with that one. Toronto Raptors. Like I said, I'm assuming the Kawhi trade has already gone through. Dude, I absolutely love the Kawhi trade. We were literally one game away from the conference finals, and that's without having a healthy or good Brandon Ingram and without having a healthy Emmanuel Quickley. And even when, like I said, Brandon Ingram was healthy for those games, he was literally the worst player on our team. Literally. Imagine Colin Murray-Boyles, Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, Kawhi Leonard, Jakob Poeltl. Give me 50 games plus a healthy playoff run of Kawhi Leonard, and I guarantee you we make some noise. I would be willing to say we make the conference finals at least, even with the Eastern Conference getting better this offseason. Do you understand how good that defense would be? Can you imagine any team in the East? I don't care if you want to put New York, Cleveland, Miami, I don't care, Washington, I don't care what team. Wow, I cannot believe I just said Washington. That's because you'll see. But whatever team, Philadelphia, my goodness, whatever team you want to put in the Eastern Conference, we have the best chance of guarding them outside of any other team other than maybe Miami. We are about to have a top 5 defense in the league and a top 2, if not top 1 defense out East. I don't know, I just don't know how you score on the Toronto Raptors after this offseason. And I mean, I will say losing Mamu does suck, at least to me, because I just feel like the whole Jakob Poeltl starting at center thing was already such a big problem last year. So for us not to address that, and then for us to lose his backup, who was a phenomenal backup, it's a bit scary, I'm not going to lie. And I don't love the prospect of CMB playing as much 5 as he did last year. I just kind of feel like that might be bad for his development, but I also just kind of feel like I don't want to see him there. Like, I would rather have a true center or just more of like a bigger body there, especially for the rebounding aspects. Like, the big reason, in my opinion, that we lost that Game 7 was because Jared Allen grabbed 20 boards. We didn't have anyone that could do anything with Jared Allen in that game, just as like with the size. We just couldn't do anything with it. Next team I already alluded to, the Washington Wizards, man. And this is even if Anthony Davis does go out and officially request a trade and say, hey, I won't play for you. I love this offseason for Washington regardless, man. Because no matter what, you went from being a place that literally had fans saying rebrand, rebuild, or rebrand, or just move, sell the team, to now you have a roster that really genuinely gets fans excited. I'm not even a Washington Wizards fan. At least I'm probably the furthest thing from it. The Washington Wizards haven't crossed my mind much in my basketball lifetime, like genuinely. But I'm excited to see this Washington Wizards lineup next year, and I didn't think I'd ever see that. A lineup of like Trae Young and then AJ DeBonsa, Keyshawn George, Anthony Davis, and Alex Sarr sounds extremely fun. And I mean, like I said, even if Anthony Davis wants out, you still have a solid team, and you have your most important piece in AJ DeBonsa no matter what. I'm excited to see what happens for Washington, not just this year, but in the future. And I think the Washington Wizards very much will be, at the very least, a play-in team this year. Like, I'm very excited to see, can this Washington Wizards team make a push to get to that 6 seed? You know what I mean? I don't think they necessarily will be able to, but I could very well see them going into the play-in and having home court advantage. Because this team is not going to be bad. Even if Anthony Davis requests a trade, even if Anthony Davis gets injured, which I hope does not happen for their sake, either one of them, the Washington Wizards, especially with as good as AJ DeBonsa has looked offensively, getting to the free throw line, scoring at all 3 levels, yeah, man, I'm loving this for Washington. I'm loving the offseason. Honestly, what Washington has done since the trade deadline has been nothing short of phenomenal. Last 2 winners, and these are, I think, the 2 most obvious winners of the offseason. It is the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll go Miami first. Again, just an obvious winner. They get Giannis for a guy who is solid, but a guy who you and the fans don't really hate losing. That's an absolute dub for you. And especially given that the Heat have pretty much struck out with every other big name since LeBron James has come there, whether it's been a Damian Lillard, whether it's been a Jaylen Brown, whether it's been it was previously Giannis was one of those names, but Kevin Durant. No matter who it's been, they have struck out on them. So for them to finally get a guy, and for that guy to be as big of a name as Giannis Antetokounmpo, is absolutely insane. I like the Tim Hardaway signing for them because they need more spacing, and I like just having Bobby Portis in there as a trade throw in as well for more depth and spacing reasons, especially because you did give up so many players in that trade. The one thing I will say is that I do have some doubts about kind of their spacing and just their overall offense. I've heard rumors that they're going after Klay Thompson, which I mean would in theory help your spacing, but still there's just not a whole bunch of offensive creation. There's not a whole bunch of guard play. And I feel like, you know, we have seen Giannis kind of strive when he has had some traditional guard play, whether it be with a Damian Lillard or really with a Drew Holiday. And Davion Mitchell's a phenomenal defensive guard. I'm just like, you know what I mean? I would rather him be maybe starting at the 2 for some defense, or and you have like a traditional maybe you know what I mean, playmaking shot creator type of point guard up top. But I still think that they had a phenomenal offseason, and if you're a Miami Heat fan, you literally have no reason to be anything other than excited. And then last but not least is the Philadelphia 76ers, who in my opinion are the most obvious winner of the offseason. They made themselves the favorites in the Eastern Conference with this offseason. You get off of the Paul George contract, which the fans have been begging you to, which, I mean, as soon as you signed that contract, everybody was like, what? So for you to get off of that, and all you had to do was give up 2 picks for a guy as talented as Jaylen Brown is absolutely insane. That's an easy offseason win. I'm also a big fan of the Dean Wade pickup. I like him to replace Kelly Oubre and to be really your main kind of big defender in that starting lineup, and just like a guy that can just be there in your starting lineup and not require too much offensively, not require too much attention, just not mess a whole lot of stuff up. I like that for Dean Wade. I also think the Anthony Simons deal is one of the more underrated ones of the offseason. He brings in bench scoring that is, in my opinion, a level up from Quentin Grimes, and I think he makes it to where not having Jared McCain is just a little bit easier to swallow. He's a good shooter. He's a good scorer. He's a guy that can get a highlight play here and there. He's a guy that I think Philadelphia 76ers fans will like a lot, and I think even if you have times where maybe Maxey misses some time or whatever, and you slide him in there, I don't think you would hate having him in there as like a temporary starting guard. Like, I really do not think Anthony Simons is as bad as the league has been treating him over these last couple of years, where like teams will trade for him and then they would find that it's impossible to trade him away for a good package. And I just always felt like him coming out of Portland, he was never as bad of a player, or like as, I don't know, difficult to deal with as a player, at least whether it be his archetype or just even his demeanor, to where like he would be that difficult to trade. I just don't see that with him. So I think the Philadelphia 76ers are the biggest winners of the offseason. Let me know what y'all think, man. Like I said, first time back in a long time. We got some schedule. We got some things that we're planning with these videos, with this channel and everything like that, because I am really trying to blow up. There's no failure. Failure's just not an option anymore, to be real with you. We're locking in. We're doing everything we can. We're here for the NBA season. We're here for the NFL season. Drop in the comments what videos y'all want to see more of, man. No matter what, keep God first, all right? I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching as always. Peace out.